Alright, listen to me very carefully. For 25 years, Ichiro Oda has followed one sacred rule in One Piece. When a character transforms using a devil fruit, we get a text box. Every single time. Fish fruit, model, azure dragon. Cat fruit, model, leopard. Human fruit, model, Nika. Every single time. Until Egghead Island. In chapter 1110, when the 5 elders fully transform into their nightmare forms, the text boxes appear, but something is wrong. Catastrophically wrong. There's no devil fruit listed, no mythical zone type, just the name of the creature. Gyuki, Itsumade, Fengshi. Do you understand what this means? This isn't Oda being lazy or mysterious. This is a reveal. The 5 elders, the supposed bureaucrats, the men who have ruled the world for 800 years from behind a desk, aren't humans who ate a devil fruit. They are the monsters. And today, I'm going to prove it to you. Because what happened on Egghead Island isn't just a battle arc. It's the moment the entire foundation of One Piece's power system got flipped upside down. The moment we learned that the world government isn't run by people, but run by something else entirely. So buckle up, because we're about to talk about occult summoning circles, telepathic hive minds, infinite regeneration, the execution of a literal god, and why Saint Saturn's death might be the most terrifying thing that's ever happened in this series. Let's get into it. Okay. Before we dive into the deep horror of what the Gorosei actually are, let's recap what we thought we knew. For the entire series, the 5 elders have been these distant, shadowy figures. They sit in the room of authority in Marijois. They give orders to the Marines. They're old. They're clearly powerful. I mean, you don't get scars like that by sitting in meetings. But we always assumed they were just really strong old dudes. Politicians with Haki, maybe former admirals or something. And then Egghead happens. St. J. Garcia Saturn gets sent to Egghead Island to deal with the Vegapunk situation. And when he arrives in chapter 1094, everything changes. He doesn't teleport in the way we've seen with Kuma's Pawpaw fruit. He gets summoned in the middle of the battlefield. A massive pentagram summoning circle appears on the ground. There's this thick, sludgy black aura choking the air. Black lightning. And I'm not talking about Conqueror's Haki sparks. I'm talking about viscous, physical lightning that looks like it has mass erupts from the circle. And then Saturn just rises out of it, like he's climbing out of hell itself. And the circle has the number 5 engraved in it. Already, this is breaking the rules. This isn't how devil fruits work. This is something else. But it gets worse. Let's talk about that summoning circle, because this is where the science versus magic debate in One Piece completely collapses. When Saturn arrives, the circle is a pentagram, a 5-pointed star inside a ring with ancient script we can't read. The number 5 is prominently displayed. Now you might think, okay, they're called the 5 elders, so obviously it's the number 5. But here's the thing. Later, when the other 4 elders get summoned to Egghead in chapter 1109, each of them has their own circle with their own number, 1 through 4. This means the number is a binding mechanism. The number 5 has always been symbolically tied to planetary alignments: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, the 5 visible planets of the ancient world. It's tied to the 5 elements in Eastern philosophy, and in occult traditions, the pentagram is literally a summoning seal. Oda's telling us these people are constant in the world's structure. They're totally part of the system that holds reality together. And here's the kicker. Sanji, the guy who literally uses fire and fights with science-based exoskeleton genetics, looks at this and had a puzzling look on his face. Why? Because if the Gorosei had devil fruits, their transformations would look like other zone awakenings. When Lucci awakens, he gets those black clouds around his body. When Luffy awakens, same thing. But the Gorosei? They get burning flames. They get summoning circles like rituals. And that's not even the wildest part. In chapter 1109, we witness something that should be impossible. Saint Saturn is getting his ass kicked by Gear 5 Luffy. Sorry, by the sun god Nika, and he's clearly outmatched. So what does he do? He telepathically calls the other 4 elders who are sitting in Marijois, thousands of miles away, and they have a full conversation. Not the voice of all things, which is passive and receptive. No, this is a clear, strategic, articulate exchange of information. The elders in Marijois can maybe see what Saturn is seeing. They can maybe feel the situation, and they coordinate a synchronized summoning ritual to bring all 4 of them to Egghead instantly. Let me say that again. They share perception across continents in real time. This is not a devil fruit ability, but might be like a hive mind. And this has massive implications, because if the 5 elders operate as a networked consciousness, that means when you talk to one of them, you're talking to all of them, and potentially to IMU. They're like 5 satellites of a central hub, and if that sounds familiar, it should, because that's exactly how Dr. Vegapunk's Stella and Satellites system works. Vegapunk split his consciousness into 6 bodies to maximize efficiency. What if the ancient powers of the Void Century did the same thing, but with magic instead of science? What if Emu is the Stella, and the 5 Elders are the Satellites? Dude! Now let's talk about the forms themselves, because this is where it all comes together. When the Elders transform, we don't see devil fruit names. We see creature names. And these aren't random monsters Oda made up. They're real mythological creatures from Japanese, Chinese, and Mongolian folklore. Saint Saturn becomes the Gyuki, also called the Ushi Oni, a spider-bodied ox demon from western Japan. In the legends, the Ushi Oni lives near water, breathes poison, and its gaze can paralyze or kill. And wouldn't you know it, Saturn can exude corrosive toxins that melt buildings, and he has that glare ability that freezes people in place. Even Sanji got paralyzed by it. This is Oda pulling directly from the myth. Saint Marcus Mars becomes the Itsumade, a grotesque bird yokai from the Taiheki. The legend says the Itsumade appears over cities suffering from plague or war, screeching, "Itsumade! Itsumade!" which means, until when? As in, how long will this suffering last? It's a creature born from despair, and Mars, the so-called warrior god of the environment, takes the form of a monster that embodies environmental collapse and human suffering. The irony is brutal. Saint Topman Workuri becomes the Feng Shi, the giant boar demon from Chinese mythology. In the legend, the hero Ho-Hi had to shoot its legs to bring it down. And Workuri? He's the most durable of all the elders. Luffy punched him with red rock and hurt his own hand. This thing is a walking tank, and he's the god of justice, a greedy, gluttonous, violent boar representing justice. Saint Ethan Baron V. Nusjuro becomes the Bakotsu, a skeletal horse yokai. In folklore, the Bakotsu is the spirit of a horse that was burned alive and came back as a skeleton. But Oda inverts it. Nusjuro's attacks don't burn, they freeze. He's the cold of the grave, the chill of death, and he's the god of finance, appearing as a creature stripped down to bare bones, austerity incarnate. And Saint Shepherd Jew Peter becomes a massive sandworm, likely inspired by the Mongolian deathworm. It burrows underground, swallows things whole, and creates a vacuum suction. And he's the god of agriculture, but instead of nurturing the land, he devours it. Do you see the pattern? Every single one of them is a thematic inversion. They're gods of order, science, justice, finance, agriculture, and the environment, but their true forms are monsters of chaos, poison, greed, death, and consumption. They are the opposite of what they claim to be, and that's the point. Alright, here's where it gets dark. Throughout the entire Egghead battle, the 5 Elders take damage that should be fatal. Saturn gets impaled by Bonnie. He gets punched by Kuma. He gets pummeled by Gear 5 Luffy. Jupiter gets sliced in half by the giants Dory and Broggy. And every single time, they just regenerate, with those black flames covering the wounds. At first, you might think, okay, they have crazy Zoan regeneration like Marco the Phoenix. But Marco's flames have limits. Marco gets tired. Marco can run out of stamina. The Gorosei, they don't even flinch. They don't block. They don't dodge. They just let it happen because they know the damage doesn't matter. We might say that this is reconstitution. They're not healing, but being rewritten. And then, in chapter 1122, we get the proof. The ancient iron giant Emmet unleashes a stored blast of Joy Boy's Haki, Conqueror's Haki from 800 years ago sealed in a knot. And when that Haki hits the Elders, it doesn't just damage them, but also cancels the powers and transformation they were. Mars, Workuri, Nusjuro, and Jupiter all get forcibly reverted from their yokai forms back to their human forms. And then, ridiculously got teleported back to Mary Joie, instantly, against their will. The summoning gets dispelled. This proves that their presence on Egghead might be a projection, a magical manifestation sustained by a continuous stream of power. And Joy Boy's Haki acted like a disruptor, cutting the connection. Which means the Elders aren't regenerating because they're tough, but regenerating because someone, or something, is actively repairing them from a distance. And that someone is Emu. And now we arrive at the most horrifying moment in the entire arc. Chapter 1125. Saint J. Garcia Saturn, warrior god of science and defense, one of the 5 rulers of the world, has been very wary of the outcome. The battle is over. Egghead has been evacuated. Vegapunk's message has been broadcast to the world. But not entirely then Saturn failed, and Emu doesn't tolerate failure. Saturn begins to beg. He's pleading for forgiveness, and then the black flames appear. The same flames that always healed him, but this time, they didn't heal. They consumed him. Saturn's body starts to age rapidly. His skin withers. His muscles atrophy. In seconds, seconds, he goes from a powerful warrior to a skeletal husk. And then he explodes! Nothing left but bones! And then, without hesitation, Saint Figerland Garling, the former Supreme Commander of the Holy Knights, the champion of God Valley, likely Shanks's father, steps into the room and takes Saturn's place. Because the Elders aren't really like tools. They're borrowed bodies running on borrowed time, kept alive by Emu's power. And when that power is revoked, 800 years of aging happens in seconds. They are vassals. They serve at Emu's pleasure, and they die at Emu's whim. And this is the true horror of the world government. This might be a necrocracy. It's a system of undead gods puppeteered by an unseen hand. What the hell? Oda! So that's everything. But here's my question for you. If the Elders are satellites and Emu is the Stella, what happens when you destroy the source? Do the Elders die instantly? Do they become mortal? Or do they go berserk? And what yokai form is Garling going to get? A moon-based creature? A wolf? Something even worse than the Gyuki? Drop your theories in the comments. Subscribe if you want more One Piece deep dives like this. Hit the bell. Share this with anyone who still thinks the Gorosei are just strong old dudes, because they're not. I'll see you in the next one.